I didn't think I would say this, but there's somebody else that likes SMU a little bit more than I do right now. Find out who on Locked On SMU on a Thursday.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On SMU, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every single day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen, and thank you for spending part of your day with us. Coming up on today's show, the wide receiver room is going to be counting on some younger production this year as opposed to in previous years. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about how important RJ Maryland is going to be, especially with his recovery from the ACL injury, in terms of elevating the offense of SMU this season. My name is Grayson Singleton. Thanks so much for joining us here today. Let's go ahead and kick it off with the outlet likes SMU even a little bit more than I do. Now, yesterday, we mentioned that in the coaches poll, SMU came in the preseason poll at number 16. If you remember yesterday's episode, I said I liked it. I like that landing spot, that 12 to 16 range, probably the back end of it, I think is where SMU should be, given what they lost from last year, given what we saw the last time they were on the field. But they also should still be a top 20 team in that sort of a projection. Sports Illustrated today came out, and they have been incrementally releasing it, their preseason top 25. And the Mustangs land at 13. So at the top of the range where I thought they would. I liked 15, 16. I wouldn't even have complained if they were 17 or 18. I think that would be on the low end. But Sports Illustrated has them on the upper end. Sports Illustrated says, an unfathomable 2024 raises the Mustang ceiling, but returning quarterback Kevin Jennings seems up to the task. Not even in their wildest imagination did SMU fans think they could have the kind of season the Mustangs went through in 2024. Even the most optimistic might have hoped to make a top-tier bowl game. But honestly, it was all pretty much gravy for the program after making it into a Power 4 conference and plastering the ACC logo all over Dallas. And if you want to take the season in its totality, I think that's a good way to look at that. I think it's a good way to take the season in its totality, add the pieces that they have coming back, and you probably get SMU in the 13 range. I do think, though, and you can call me prisoner of the moment if you want to. I also saw a lot of your comments that said we kind of like 16. But I think what you show your floor is, especially in that season, what you show your floor is always going to average out what your peak was. And the question you have to ask is, was the peak of SMU a top 12? Certainly. But was that enough to offset the floor that looked like SMU was clearly a class below Penn State? Is it enough to offset the fact that SMU was down 21-7 in the ACC title game against Clemson before they really found their footing? Because the start of that game was horrendous. And if you put all the puzzle pieces together of last season, the highs and the lows, you subtract the production that's outgoing, which is a lot, especially at wide receiver and at defensive end. I think 13 for a preseason ranking is the high end. I think that's optimistic. Now, that's not to say that my 16 and why I liked where they landed in the preseason coaches poll is the negative way to look at it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that. But I do think it's a softer landing spot. Because if you're 13, the higher you are ranked, the more you're going to be scrutinized. Because you'll always be scrutinized up against that preseason ranking. Now, can SMU back it up? Absolutely they could. They 1,000% could. But when you look at some of the teams that they would be ranked higher than, and I haven't seen Sports Illustrated's complete list yet, it leaves a little bit to question. It certainly does. Now, because of the way they've released this, SI has honestly made this very difficult to go back and see who is ranked higher or lower. But Florida's at 16. That's a team right there. A&M is 17, and quite frankly, A&M might be a better team than SMU this year. They might. There's a lot of buzz around A&M. Texas Tech is 14. Now, there's the kicker. As I continue to find the list, there's the kicker. Texas Tech at 14. I'm going to ask you this. Do you think a newly assembled Texas Tech team, I'm going to completely counter the point I just made. Do you think a newly assembled $25 million roster that Texas Tech has, the number one transfer portal class, knowing what we know about Texas Tech, you think Texas Tech is better than SMU? I would wager to say no. And that's what gives validity to this list, is that we don't really like Texas Tech that much. But when I look at SMU as a top 15 team, here's what I need to see, because I'm not there yet. Quite frankly, I'm not there yet. Does that negate the fact that I think they're going to make the college football playoff? No, because making the college football playoff isn't solely based on rankings and numbers. We know this, right? Especially in the preseason. If they're going to be a top 12 team in the country, here's what I need proof of. Here's what I need proof of, and I need to know it. Did Kevin Jennings get better? Seems likely, but we got to wait and see. Does the offensive line get better, not in terms of remedying a poor performance, but get better in terms of, do they continue to take that step as players, and maybe some of them start getting looks into the NFL? Because I think an elite offensive line helps this team go a long way. Does the backfield situation iron itself out? Can they find a consistent pass rush once again? What is the defensive leadership like, and how are the corners? I just rattled off about 6 major questions right there. Now, let me pitch this to you. With those sorts of major questions, does that sound like a top 15 team to you? And I think most of your answers will be no. But it's a top 20 team because we know the talent. We're not asking these questions on a team that's devoid of talent. We're asking these questions on a team that has talent, but we just want to see it. And I think that's what separates top 10, 12 from teams that are top 15, top 20. Top 15, top 20 is, or top 10 is, we know you have the talent and we reasonably know what we're going to get. SMU, you've got the talent. We just need to see it. I think that's the line of demarcation there between we know we're going to get it and I just need to see it a couple times and then I'm there. And that's where I am with SMU right now. Just show it to me a couple weeks and then I'm like, I got you. And if they do that, yes, this will be a borderline top 12 team and a team right back in the thick of it when it comes to the college football playoff. Hey, I want to give you a teaser for what's coming up on tomorrow's episode. On tomorrow's episode, we're going to talk to Locked On Baylor. We're going to do another crossover episode as Cam Stewart from Locked On Baylor is going to join us. He'll join us for the entire show. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk to one of the guys who covers one of SMU's opponents. So you're going to want to stick around for that. But coming up next, I saw this article from the Dallas Morning News. SMU is going to be relying on a lot of youngsters at wide receiver this year. Why that should excite you, why that might cause panic. We'll talk about it on the other side. Stay with us here on Locked On SMU. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether it's all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it just a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are over here just getting sunburned because, let's face it, a lot of people don't use sunscreen. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and always has a fun new way to bet. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, welcome back to Locked On SMU. I'm Grayson Singleton. By the way, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so we can continue to grow this channel and grow the Locked On SMU community. Go ahead and click the notification bell so you can get notified when our new content drops. That's every weekday, Monday through Friday at noon Central Time. The podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast will be going up every single morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. So there's your times, but go ahead, click those notifications. Just go ahead and do it, man, so you can get a notification and not miss a single episode. Okay. SMU lost a lot at wide receiver. We know this. As a matter of fact, it was over 2,000 yards worth. 2,000 yards and 11 touchdowns went out the door last spring as SMU lost dudes like Roger Daniels, Keyshawn Smith, Moochie Dixon, Jake Bailey, those type of guys. And the Dallas Morning News notes this here, and this was something that slipped my mind. Since Rashee Rice left for the NFL, SMU has taken a by-committee approach at receiver. They use a ton of receivers, rotate a ton of receivers. Get this. Last year, there were 8 different wide receivers for SMU that had over 275 yards and a touchdown, but nobody exceeded 700 yards. So SMU and Rhett Lashley and Casey Woods, they want to play a ton of dudes. 8 dudes that had 275 yards is bonkers in today's NFL, college football. Nuts. 8 of them? Now, what does that mean? Well, one, it means guys like Jordan Hudson, Ronello Brinson are going to have upgraded roles. We already know that. We talked about that. But who's going to be those 5, 6, 7, 8 dudes that are somehow going to flirt with 300 yards receiving, which, again, is still kind of nuts. I have no idea if they're going to duplicate that. Could they? Sure. But SMU's true freshman class at wide receiver is very, very exciting. You have guys like Grayson Singleton from DeSoto, Jalen Cooper from Cibolo Steel, that's down in the San Antonio area, Isaiah Robertson from Arlington, Seguin Carterius Brown, also from Arlington. These are dudes that can play. And if you don't remember back in that 2025 class, I'll take you back to it because Grayson Singleton was a highly coveted 4-star. Jalen Cooper from Cibolo Steel, highly coveted 4-star wide receiver. And they're going to have to play. They are going to have to be ready. You know how I know this? Because wide receivers coach Rob Likens actually pitched that to them as part of the recruiting pitch. According to the Dallas Morning News, this is what Likens said. We told them, guys, we're losing dudes. We need you. If you come here, you're going to play as a freshman if you are who we think you are. Now, for those of you who were athletes in high school, so maybe some of you played in college. I did not. I broke my foot and was like, nah, I'm done with this. Hence why I'm in this business. But for those of you that played in college, you remember wanting to get on the court or on the field, whatever, as a freshman, right? You always want to be ready and thrown into that action early. SMU is going to give those guys a chance to do it. They're going to see what they're about. And dudes like Cooper and Singleton, man, by the way, to whom I have no relation, those dudes are I think, the top 2 that are going to get some run, especially if they live up to that 4-star status early. Now, does that mean they're going to set the world on fire because they're 4-star freshmen? No. What Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams did last year is a crazy, outrageous anomaly. But Coach Likens likes what he's seen so far. Here's what he said, quote, Jalen Cooper, who was here in the spring, is doing really good things. Isaiah Robertson, wow, just for a true freshman, is very, very impressive. His body type and how physical that he plays is going to allow him to play as a true freshman when that occurs. Not if, when. He's going to play. Furthermore, he says, Carterius Brown can catch any ball you throw at him. Zay Robertson is a specimen as far as from a physical standpoint. Just talked about that. Cooper is fun to watch. He's quiet, competitive, but he runs routes well, does some of the little things well. And Grayson Singleton can run by anybody probably on the field at the D1 level. And that's where we get to the point of why this shouldn't panic you so much. Now, you could look at a team like last year's Oklahoma and see all those true freshmen and be like, well, maybe we should panic because that offense looked anemic. And if that's the direction you want to take, again, I live in Norman, Oklahoma, fine, be my guest. I can also tell you this. If you want to juxtapose it to the situation that you had in Norman, nobody in Norman thought the true freshmen that the Sooners were playing were ready to play. That was not the case. And look, there's no way that some of these freshmen, Singleton, Robertson, Cooper, are going to be starters. Neither should they be. But as rotational players, when you hear somebody say he's physically ready to hold up, that's a good sign because that's generally what freshmen cannot do. They cannot physically hold up playing against the grown men of college football. Grayson Singleton can run by anybody. Well, if you want to get past the physical side of it, probably try to get somebody who can run by everybody. By the way, let me, what is Grayson Singleton's measurables? Let's take a look. Grayson Singleton, who, by the way, in 2024 as a senior, had 856 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns on 15.3 yards per catch. In his junior year, he caught 55 balls for 1,210 yards and 17 touchdowns. That's incredible. 5'11", 178 is what he's listed as, but he's got incredible speed. So he's not terribly small. You would like a little bit more weight. You would like him up in the 180 range, but he is more than 170, 175. So we're good there. Cooper is a bigger dude, but you've got talent. But the reality of the situation with the way SMU likes to play is this. Hudson, Brinson, you'll have a couple other guys, and then let's throw the kids in there and see what happens. And I like how SMU is set up with those kids. You can panic all you want to because you've seen a bunch of freshmen at a receiver core that just, quite frankly, hasn't panned out well. Or if the hierarchy works out and these guys get to be put in advantageous situations for them, SMU is going to be just fine. And they're going to have a crazy amount of versatility in their offensive attack. All right, one more segment to go here on Locked On SMU. RJ Maryland is key. Why? We'll talk about that next to close up shop on a Thursday. Final segment here on Locked On SMU on a Thursday. Remember, we're going to talk to Locked On Baylor's, if I can get this to work, Cam Stewart. There we go. We're going to talk to Locked On Baylor's Cam Stewart tomorrow to round out our week. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get insight on SMU's first really competitive opponent in the 2025 season. We're going to talk about Baylor, where they stand. We'll also talk about what he thinks in terms of SMU's quest to get back to the college football playoff. So you're going to want to make sure that you tune in for that episode on Friday. I found this from Nicholas Rome of the SaturdayBlitz.com. Kevin Jennings can't do it alone. 4 other Mustangs must step up for SMU's CFP hopes. Here's the list. Number 5, Isaiah Smith. Number 4, Derek McFall. Number 3, RJ Maryland. Number 2, Isaiah Wacobia. And then obviously number 1 is Jennings himself. In terms of the way they word this. The way I like to think about this, with the way they word this is, these guys must step up. I know Isaiah Wakobe is a superstar for SMU, so I wouldn't put him on this list. Because, yes, he's going to need to put on a good performance, but I don't think he has to. He's in a position where we're looking at him like, hey, man, you got to step up. You got to really step this up. With RJ Maryland, I do put him in this category. RJ Maryland, by mid-October, before he tore his ACL, had caught 34 balls for 518 yards and 7 touchdowns. It is a miracle. That might be a stretch, but it is incredibly highly impressive that SMU was able to continue what they did on offense once he went down. Because he was actually the elevator. I mean, this was a dude that was going to flirt with, at minimum, 1,000 yards. At minimum, he was going to flirt with 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns. RJ Maryland is a monster. Now, all reports out of camp, I read some of these yesterday, is that he's moving around good. They're working him back on the precipice of ramping him up, and he should be good to go coming off of the ACL. That's what I've heard out of camp. But he, to me, and I've said this before, and I'll say this again, he can raise the ceiling of this offense so much. Because I have faith in that wide receiver core. I think the wide receiver core, if healthy, is going to be good. And I have faith in Coach Lashley and Coach Woods that they're going to work those younger guys into situations where they should be able to succeed. So I've got faith in the wide receiver core. I think the backfield will iron itself out. I really do. But not a lot of college teams are equipped to deal with a tight end like RJ Maryland. They're just not. Because RJ Maryland is obviously, he's going to be really big as compared to defensive backs, and he can move a hell of a lot better than most linebackers. A hell of a lot better. So when I look at the impact he can have, coming back into that form, now is he 34 catches, 518, and 7 touchdowns by mid-October? I don't know. Maybe he is. If he comes back 100%, I would certainly expect him to at least approach that. But even if he doesn't, that is a dude that will at minimum make it, if not highly impossible, very difficult to double any kind of wide receiver. You're not going to be able to roll a coverage to a wide receiver with a tight end who can own the middle of the field like RJ Maryland can. It just won't happen. So if SMU's offense is going to take that next step and maybe even take an explosion, RJ Maryland's got to be that dude who he was a season ago. And all reports out of camp are encouraging. They really they get me hyped that RJ Maryland's going to be just fine. But if you have that dude who's gotten better as a blocker in his time at SMU, along with Matthew Hibner, you've got multiple tight ends that you can do a lot with. That's a 2 tight end set that you can do some really creative, crafty stuff. And if all the ingredients are there and we've seen what Hibner can become, Casey Woods is going to have a fun problem on his hands trying to figure out what to do with this offense in terms of personnel. I think that's going to be really fun. And I think SMU is going to be in a really good spot. Cam Stewart coming up tomorrow afternoon to round out Locked On SMU. This is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to have that conversation with him. I'm Grayson Singleton. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out the portal with our man, Brian Smith. He's got all the latest on what's going on in the world of college football. We will talk to you tomorrow with Cam. Take it easy, everybody.